For people that are brand new to this channel, just to give you guys a little background on where I'm coming from this, I had originally been staying on a block over by Morrison National, which is controlled by a gang called PBG in East Rogers Park. And they're in a war with a gang called Loccity, which is a few blocks to the north of that off of Howard Street. Loccity meaning loyal, it's LOC, it stands for loyalty over cash. Okay, so these are both gangster disciples, like it's GDs versus other GDs. Okay, there's actually more GDs like to the south of that are into it with them too, but this is just like the only conflict that comes into this video. So originally I had been like promoting PBG's music. You know, it was the gang from my block, and I had gotten in contact with a couple of their guys. I was going to interview them, and I was doing as much as I could to kind of promote the music from, the guys that were on my block. But the problem is, due to some events involving some people that I can't talk about, we had a falling out. And so basically that, and also I decided to stop promoting drill music. I couldn't rock with the drill music anymore just because of my conscience. So I stopped rocking with those guys. Now, their enemies, the Loccity guys, they had wanted some interviews, so I went over there and started interviewing them. That pretty much burned every bridge, So anyways, we're going to have to do that with one particular guy. And the crime has been solved, so it's not, it's not like super snitching, but I'm just going to give some details here that you may not have heard about on TV if you heard this report. So this is a guy named Harvey, and his street name is the Angel of Death, and he's a Loccity member who actually was living out west. And up north and out west kind of rock with each other a lot. A lot of people from out west and up north, they, do stuff together in the streets, basically. It's like, it's very close. It's kind of like out south and over east. Saying up north and out west is kind of closer. So anyways, he was staying over there from what I know, but he was, coming over to East Rogers Park, to our neighborhood to basically, hang out with these guys, okay, it's really like the border of Evanston where the Lokes are at. Evanston is a suburb to North Chicago. So he's off of Howard Street with these guys. They're into it with PBG. Now, there's been some guys that have been caught in this conflict in other parts of the city, but this particular one was not that. They were going right over to their neighborhood. Okay, so apparently one of his homies had lost his older brother. So they were out for get back, for that. So they were riding on PBG. Now, one of these incidents I'm going to talk about in this video, the guy who they caught was totally innocent. So in that instance, I don't know who they were riding on. It was closer to PBG's territory, but at any rate, this is from about 7 or 8 years ago, and I'm going to give you guys a few details, like I said, that you may not have heard about, man. They didn't name their gang affiliations in the most recent report, and I'll fill in the details for you guys. Rogers Park man, the prosecutor said, earned the nickname Angel of Death because every time he goes out, someone dies, was sentenced to 38 years in prison for murdering a man in West Rogers Park on Thanksgiving Day 2015. Harvey, 29, was found guilty of 6 counts of murder during a bench trial before the judge on February 23rd. On Tuesday, the judge handed down his sentence. Prosecutors dropped a second murder case that he was facing, according to the clerk of court entries. So they said that he had intended to kill rival gang members, and prosecutors had charged him with both murders in November of 2019 while he was serving 7 years in a federal prison for a gun case. Now, this guy had a criminal record that started when he was at the age of 12. Okay, the first victim was a guy named Albert. He was totally neutral. He was not a gang member. Prosecutors said he was standing with another man in an alley over in the 7100 block of North Clark. So that's by Toohey and Clark. It's closer to that spot right there. I don't think is either of them. But anyways, it's real close to both of them though. When a gunman stepped out of a vehicle and started shooting at around 4 a.m. on February 25th, 2015. So Albert died. The other man that he was with was 30. He was shot 3 times. So he's accused of being the getaway driver in that crime. On Tuesday, prosecutors dropped all charges that he faced in the case, including 2 counts of first-degree murder. 9 months later, he was the trigger man. Okay, he was the shooter in a shooting that claimed the life of a 23-year-old. Now, this particular victim's name was John Tay. That was his government name. His street name was PBG Mosey or Mos Deuce. I'm going to refer to him by his government name in this video, but he was PBG. So he was not like just a innocent bystander or anything. He was an actual known member from the Pooh Bear Gang or Cutthroat faction of the Gangster Disciples by Farwell and Ashland. which was like, that was like on my side. I was by like Morrison Ashland, but these guys definitely were into it with the Lokes. So the first guy was innocent. And by the way, guys, anybody who's debating like whether or not that first guy was innocent, Albert was innocent. Like he wasn't just somebody that, guilt by association, like nothing. Totally innocent guy. They didn't even like know who they had gotten. They didn't. That was a total mistake or whatever by them. You know what I'm saying? So I don't even know who they thought they were targeting, but that guy was totally innocent. Mosey was not on anything at that particular moment, but he was a member of their ops. Okay, and like he had Cutthroat tattooed on himself. So I mean, Insane Cutthroats, Gangsters is the other name. That's like the technical name for that faction of GDs over there. And when I was staying there was no war between those two GD factions, but that kind of started around 2008. So West Rogers Park is not really where the territories are at. It's more like East Rogers Park where they're at. But anyways, John Tate was working on his girlfriend's car. And this was about a couple blocks like west of Damon off of Thome. So that's not really by PBG or Loccity. So they caught him over there. Okay, this is what I'm saying. Like sometimes these guys get caught in different hoods, and they know most of their ops by face. Okay, so this was on Thanksgiving. So the Angel of Death hopped out of a minivan and started shooting. John Tate tried to run away after being shot, but he fell. And then apparently the shooter seized the opportunity to shoot him several times at close range, according to prosecutors. So he ended up with 12 gunshot wounds, John Tate did. Officials said that he was seeking revenge for a previous gang-related killing, and that was apparently the older brother of his accomplice. In March of 2018, a federal judge sentenced Harvey to 84 months in prison for having a handgun in his vehicle in Skokie. Federal prosecutors called him, quote, a lifelong criminal who committed his first violent crime at the age of 14. He had another crime, I think, at the age of 12. In the time of his arrest in the federal case, he was 23 and had already amassed 11 convictions with 18 other arrests. His state felony convictions include possession of a firearm by a gang member, unlawful use of a weapon, possession of a firearm by a felon, and aggravated battery of a police officer, according to court records. So he had been extradited from Kentucky, and this is something that he's been dealing with in the courts for a long time. So in 2016, he was charged with the two murders in connection with the fatal shootings in Rogers Park and West Ridge. And West Ridge, guys, for those of you guys who don't know, that's like another, it's really part of the North Pole, although, it's a little bit west of like where those neighborhoods are at. So this is why I tell people, like, really west of Damien, for people that are thinking of moving, to that area, like I said, I had a guy who asked me on one of the previous videos, he said he was a young black guy. If you're a young black guy, probably west of Western, because like Westridge, there's a lot of that too. So anyways, Harvey, he was ordered at that time held at Cook County Jail without bail at a hearing after prosecutors had him extradited from a federal prison in Kentucky in order to charge him with that February 25th killing of Albert and the November 25th, 2015 killing of John Tate. So these were both in the same year, that he was turning up. Prosecutors said that he would often just hang out in an apartment on West Juneway Terrace near the Evanston border with fellow members of the LOC Get Rich faction of the GD's street gang. Now, Get Rich, that's like one faction of Loccity. Loccity has a lot of different factions, like a lot of different sets off there. Anyways, he became known as the Angel of Death because, quote, every time he goes out, someone dies. So Albert was killed on his son's 6th birthday over in the 1700 block of West Toohey, shortly after getting a job working at a Georgia nut company in Skokie. So Harvey, like I said, was accused of driving the getaway car in that killing, and a gunman found out that the victim was not a gang member after reading the report on cell phones on John Tate. Now, this one was crazy because the girlfriend was there too, and John Tate from PBG, allegedly saved the girlfriend's life by pushing her out of the way. So, like I said, he was Pooh Bear Gang, and he pushed his girlfriend out of the way while he was working on her car and ran in the opposite direction. Harvey had been in custody since his April 6, 2016 arrest following a high-speed chase that began in Skokie, which is a suburb of north Chicago, and ended after he spun out on an expressway entrance ramp, according to a guilty plea, where he admitted being a felon in possession of a 9mm handgun with an extended mag. He and his passenger, who was a guy named Leroy, fled the crash on foot, but were soon captured nearby. So Harvey was initially charged with unlawful possession of a firearm, fleeing and eluding a peace officer, obstructing, resisting a peace officer, possession of cannabis, and driving with a revoked driver's license in state court before federal prosecutors indicted him on firearms-related charges. He has LOC tattooed on his hands. He pled guilty to one count with a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. He was sentenced to 84 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervision. So the feds are a lot more tough than the state. Gun charges and even stuff like that. It's not getting that much time with the state, but the feds had sentenced him to 84 months, followed by 3 years supervision. He had been due to be released from federal prison in March of 2022, according to the Bureau of Prisons. But ahead of his March 2018 sentencing, the assistant U.S. attorney said he was among those contributing to the gun violence plague in Chicago. He said, quote, he's a lifelong criminal. He received his first criminal conviction at the age of 12 and was first convicted of a violent crime at age 14. They said in total he's been convicted of 11 different offenses despite being only 23 years old, and now he's 29. But he argued that in his sentencing memo, he said in addition to those 11 convictions, he's been arrested at least an additional 18 times. So he was out there like that, according to court records. He was convicted in August 2011 of possession of a stolen vehicle, aggravated battery to a cop, possession of a firearm by a gang member, and aggravated unlawful use of a weapon. He was subsequently convicted of possession of a firearm by a felon in April of 2013, reckless conduct in September 2014, and resisting law enforcement in July of 2015, between time he allegedly took part in the fatal shootings of Albert and John Tay following his April 2015 arrest in Evanston. Prosecutors said he also fled from police in that instance. And so he now has been sentenced to 38 years after, all the time that he's already served, man. So the angel of death from Loccity, man. One of the guys who was really out there like that for Loccity, the law got him. It caught up with him. That lifestyle, man. That lifestyle, the youth, the young kids that are hanging out with them, I fear for their future, man. I mean, these are the guys who are mentoring a lot of these kids, and I mean, they get respect for doing stuff like this. So it's unfortunate they're growing up in that environment of peer pressure, but there's crowds, I'll say this, in that neighborhood, man, you can find a crowd that's not into that. You know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody's doing that. And that's true everywhere, but even more so up north, at the North Pole. Like, this is not Inglewood, it's not Austin, it's not Garfield Park, where every block is, another setting, like everybody's knows somebody, and, it's not like that. You can find people that are just not on a crumb, and you go hang out with them. You know what I'm saying? It may be boring, it may be lame, but, man, there's longevity in that. You don't want to be, facing 38 years when you're still in your 20s, and then get 38 years. Okay, so you're not going to be out until you're almost 70. That stuff is going to get to your head, doing stuff like that in the streets, man. Like, I've had gang members, like, break down to me, like, have, like, mental breakdowns in front of me over the stuff they've done in the streets. Like, they tell me, like, this stuff is catching up with them. Your conscience, the way that your conscience works, it'll eventually get numb if you do wrong again and again and again. Like, if you go against your conscience again and again, your conscience will eventually just stop talking to you and just be silent, so you won't feel it anymore. But see, the spiritual side of that, the effects are still going to keep on happening. Your conscience is like your pain, like physically when you feel pain, it's, indicating that there's something wrong you need to stop doing. Your conscience is like that with your soul. You keep on ignoring that, you're hurting something. Okay, well, it'll eventually get numb, just like with the body. You keep on, harming the same part of the body again and again, that you're eventually going to kill the nerves and you're going to stop feeling it. Well, it's the same thing with the conscience, but you're still doing damage. And that damage is eventually going to catch up with you and cause you to get involved in all types of self-destructive behavior. I mean, these gang members, a lot of them contemplate suicide. A lot of them don't. They make this stuff look good for the internet, bro. They make it look like they got it all together. You know what I'm saying? But they're doing tons of drugs, to fight these demons that they've let inside of them. They're having conflicts with everybody in their life, their family, their, girlfriends, everybody, their kids. And, they're trying to maintain these relationships sometimes from jail, just like over the phone. They're thinking about their kids being in the arms of some other guy that their girl is now with on the outside. It tortures them mentally. The stuff that they've done, that tortures them mentally. And it's like, bro, they got into all this for what? You know what I'm saying? Like, none of this, I promise you, kids, none of it is worth it, man. Think about this beforehand. No matter what, your beliefs about spirituality are, that is going to affect you. I'm not here to preach, my particular religious views to you guys, but I'm telling you, it's a certified money back guaranteed fact that you can just learn by observation from other guys how that messes with their heads. Don't just look at them in the music videos. Talk to their family, talk to the people that know them on a personal level, and you're going to see how that's really messing with them. Rest in peace to the two guys that they killed. Your boy, Chicago News. I'm out.